Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for staying at this late. I think this will be the last session, but I want to promise one thing. This will be probably the hardcore, like super governance-focused niche topic that you're going to enjoy. But anyway, today at session 10, we are going to talk about experience as a professional delegate and a DAO contributor. My name is Kohei from Senate Labs, and I'm super honored to have a chat with like governance gigabrains, Matt from Gauntlet, and Austin from Llama, Bobby from Stable Lab, and then Gabby from BitDAO. I guess we should start from giving an intro of yourself. Maybe start from Matt.
Hi, Matt Dobell. I lead business development and governance at Gauntlet. Gauntlet is a financial modeling platform for DeFi. Currently work with several DeFi lending protocols and also participate as a delegate in Uniswap, DYDX, and Arbitrum.
Hi, everyone. I'm Austin. I'm a co-founder of Llama. At Llama, we contribute to a lot of the leading protocols and communities, and we do a mix of work, but mostly focus on treasury management, data analytics, and protocol engineering.
Hi everyone, I'm Bobby. I'm the governance lead at Stable Lab, and we focus on professional delegates. So we're professional delegates in around 15 protocols, and we also develop governance products.
Hello, I'm Gavin from VitaDAO, and I lead the governance for funding early stage longevity research. So extending human lifespans is something that we are morally aligned on.
Cool. All right. Maybe we should start with the question of like, what is a professional delegate and why are they important? Maybe you want to start, Bobby, as one of the great example. Stable Lab is like one of the most committed organization for professional delegate work. So yeah, what's your thoughts on the definition of professional delegate? And also, why are they important for DAOs and decentralized governance?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think, to be honest, I think everyone has different definitions of what a professional delegate is. And even now, we all tackle it in different ways. I guess a nice way to kind of summarize it is that like professional delegates are either individuals or dedicated teams who spend time and resources committed to a protocol or multiple protocols to look after their governance. If most individuals of DAOs don't have time to focus on governance, so instead they can delegate their tokens, their trusts into teams like Stable Lab, Gauntlet, Llama, etc. To like push DAOs in the right direction. Right is subjective, but to push the DAO in some form of direction.
And also you have a funny term. Sometimes you call professional delegate protocol politician, which is, I think it's quite a funny state.
Yeah, I got that from Metropolis. They termed it protocol politicians, and that's kind of what we are.
Cool. What about others? Maybe like Llama is really interesting professional delegate too. They are like B2DAO, like organization that serving, providing service to DAOs. But interesting thing about Llama is that lately you guys are heavily focused on providing service to one DAO, which is Aave. So yeah, what's your thoughts on being a professional delegate and participate in governance?
Yeah, I think an important kind of role to establish here is the difference between the proposal creators and the entities that are involved in getting a proposal from creation to execution. And so when I think of the likes of Gauntlet, the primary way they contribute to a protocol is by creating proposals, is by making risk recommendations. And I think that's one category of contribution. And then the other category of contribution for pro delegates is the stable node style, taking specific expertise and understanding and helping influence the governance process and making sure the right decisions get made. And so that's kind of something we've seen at Llama, where the kind of both the experience and the way the community of a protocol is going to want to kind of think about how to optimally design their governance is going to depend on kind of which contributor or service provider you're talking about.
Cool. What about you, Matt? Like, Austin briefly explained about Gauntlet, but yeah, like you guys are the organization that basically created a B2 DAO space, like providing risk moderation to a bunch of big DeFi protocols like Compound, I think recently Uniswap 2 or Aave. But yeah, from the point of B2 DAO, like what is professional delegate and why are they important?
Yeah, I think B2 DAO is something that really came about when Gauntlet went to Compound to get maybe one of the first grants to start doing some work there. All of a sudden, Compound said, "Hey, we're forming this DAO," and really we had no choice but to figure out how to kind of work with the DAO directly. I think that's kind of where like B2 DAO came from. And yeah, Gauntlet kind of splits it up in two ways. So yeah, to Austin's point, for protocols we work with like Aave and Compound, we are not there to be a professional delegate in the sense that maybe like a stable lab is. We're there to provide risk management services, and then it's up to professional delegates to decide like what these parameters should be. Should they vote for this? Should they not? And we're providing a service to the DAO and the community to kind of keep them safe from kind of economic attack vectors there. Then the other side of it is just given kind of our experience in the space, the amount of research we've done, how long we've been around, we've built a track record as somebody who just understands DeFi. So therefore, you have other protocols that we don't work with, like Uniswap or DYDX, or even ecosystems like Arbitrum, where people are looking for somebody who has that experience, who has that quantitative insight, and has seen a lot, frankly. And so that's how we've kind of built our brand there, and like that's where we act as more of a professional delegate. So kind of like a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Gotcha. Cool. And last but not least, Gavin has, I think, like unique beauty. He's the one, leading the governance at B2 DAO. I think, Vitalik mentioned quite a lot about B2 DAO when he talks about DAO governance. But yeah, like from the point of governance lead, yeah, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking delegation or professional delegates in decentralized science, I think most of our community is formed by academics in the space. And we really need their insights in pushing forward funding proposals for longevity science. For an average Joe, even if we are interested in the science, we don't know the relevant intricacies sometimes to push these funding proposals. So having service providers like Pfizer on board with us as active voters for our proposals is something that we really cherish, and also some really high-profile academics in the space to come out and take time to vote and see these really early-stage projects come through is something that we really cherish, and something that I want to push forth too. The academic side of delegation is there, but we also want to push more so on the DAO coordination framework, get more Web3 and DAO enthusiasts involved as well, so on those type of proposals.
Gotcha. Do you have like any ideas in your mind, like how to push this delegation model at B2 DAO? Like, I think the first one was like Synthetics or Maker started like giving incentive for Synthetics it's council, but like started compensating to the delegates to basically to have more delegates and engage them within the governance. But yeah, like it could be general idea or about B2 DAO, like. How do you want to push this trend of delegation?
Yeah, I think incentives is a tricky one, especially for delegation. I think in any way we just want to create active governance participation in some way. We don't want to specifically use incentives all the time. I feel like if a community is genuinely mission aligned with the project, we wouldn't need that much of incentives, especially if it's tradable. So we're working on really diving deep into what VitaDAO means to our community and what it could mean to anyone who's coming in. and incentivizing their passions instead, so that they stay within our forums and take ownership and lead some proposals, whether it be funding or it be changing up our framework or our ops, stuff like that, or even our community outreach.
Gotcha. What about you, Bobby? Like, B2DAO is more focused on research and funding to the project, but like you guys, I feel like Stable Lab is heavily focused on the governance of DeFi protocols. I guess like you might have a different view. Yeah.
What on
Like
delegate
to
compensation?
like what's your thoughts on incentive mechanism for delegates, and also it doesn't necessarily have to be incentive, but like how do you want to, like how DAO should push this delegation trend like in their governance?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I kind of agree with Gavin. I don't think it's black and white. I think it's like on a spectrum. So you don't want to just incentivize delegates for the sake of it. You want to incentivize high quality delegates, and that doesn't always come with compensation. So like I think in some cases where like you have MakerDAO governance, that's like very time intensive. It takes a lot of your time, and some delegates have been burnt out from it. That requires like incentives. If you're in like a smaller DAO, maybe like Euler that was still going, maybe delegate compensation wasn't needed at the start, but over time, if you want to maintain that like commitment to a DAO, I think that's when delegate compensation kind of ties in. But like if a DAO just formed and it's new, I think it'd be a waste of funds to initially pay people. It's like once it's formed the connection, some people are like aligned with it correctly, which I think Gavin mentioned. Once people have formed that natural alignment without incentives, you can kind of trust those people, and you want to incentivize them to stay. Like there's a lot of money in crypto, it's flying around everywhere. So I think when the time is right, you should like encourage delegate compensation. But the time is right is always kind of subjective. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Gotcha. What about you two, Matt and Austin? I mean, like from the point of like a service provider or B2 DAOs, like, do you think it's not necessity, but like, do you think it's important to actively participate in governance, and also like how they should like participate in governance, like to be a delegate, but also at the same time, like service provider to those client DAO? Yeah.
Yeah, I think a big trend we're going to see over the next year and probably the next few years is a decentralization of the access control of how decisions are made in DAOs. And so right now token voting is just a very blunt instrument where if you have tokens delegated to you and you're someone like Gauntlet, you can use those tokens to make risk proposals. And then you also might get a message from someone trying to renew the grants program, and they might be trying to pitch you on why they're the right choice, and that might put you in an uncomfortable position because that's kind of not what you're meant to do. And I think there's some real like tech advancements we can make here in terms of running parallel processes for different aspects of the protocols, and ensuring everything from proposal creation to who's voting on it, and is there a voting process? Is it more of a veto process? Is there a reviewer? All of that. I think we've seen this in many other organizations where we end up in the long term is that the decision making is still decentralized because there's different experts involved in different parts of the protocol, but the decentralization happens by splitting up the subject matter expertise. So that's where I see things going long term. I think I think there will still be generalists who are kind of these big delegates who weigh in on a lot of different decisions. But even then, they'll have experts in these different categories, kind of on their team.
Yeah, Austin said it really well. I mean, I think Gauntlet is very good at risk management. We're very good at the hard math. We have no idea if Aave should institute a new front end. We have no opinion on that. We shouldn't have an opinion on that. And I think going into any DAO we work with, or any kind of delegation, it's important for us to have kind of a stated voting philosophy. we want people to know what we're going to vote for, how we're going to vote for it, how we think about it. So, when there are votes like that come up, there is an expectation of, we may abstain, we may not vote, because, we don't find that our vote or our thoughts there are going to be as valuable as kind of the rest of the DAO and the community.
That's true. Like, I think this is a great point. Like, definitely it's true that, like, right now, delegation model is quite general, like, just delegating voting power for, like, all the type of decisions. But definitely right now, it's there's a trend towards, like, more expertise, like base delegation. Like, I think there was a recent proposal on Aave to make risk steward, which was an amazing proposal. So about the context, it was more like, rather than, asking everyone to make decision for risk management, like for Aave, there's like 5 or 10 proposal about parameter change every week, which is crazy. Like delegates are just getting burned out because of that. So rather than that, like they're trying to experiment, like giving this limited voting governance power to do a parameter change to a Chaos Labs and Gauntlet, which is, I think, exactly what you said, like, going towards expertise-based delegation. But yeah, like, how do you see this trend? Like, yeah, like, maybe like it'll be quite specific to two of you, but like, how do you feel and see this proposal?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. Risk in DeFi moves very quickly. Sometimes you don't have time to put up a proposal to change parameters if USDC depegs. You have to be able to move quickly. You can't kind of like be at the whim of execution times, proposal times, et cetera. Have seen people experimenting with like optimistic governance as well, which I think is gaining some traction and something where you can make changes within certain bounds. And if you go outside those bounds or if you act maliciously, you can you kind of pay the penalty as a result. And so when you think about things like treasury management too, like you kind of leave it to the experts in the protocol, and that's kind of how you form more efficient governance within these DAOs.
Yeah, I think, so to set some context here too, that might be helpful. So the way at Llama that we're encapsulating all kind of the learnings we've had over the past couple of years contributing to all these DAOs is, alpha leak for the DAOTokyo audience is we're going to audit with a governance protocol in a couple weeks that is informed by a lot of these learnings. And so the way we're thinking about things here is you're exactly right, where there are a risk committee does make sense, and what makes sense for token holders that is actually much more empowering than something like corporate governance, right? In corporate governance, the ownership is typically very dispersed, and it's very hard for ownership to band together and veto a decision. Usually, it requires an activist investor, and it's kind of this messy public process. The way we can bring this on chain is by rather requiring approval for every decision from token holders, like the treasury management example or risk example. The token holders are setting the initial kind of parameters around a treasury management program, and then they retain some sort of veto right, where it's a really clean mechanism because it's essentially like one event where if one token holder sees that something's going really bad, then they just have to make sure everyone else knows and alert it, and it will spread, and it will lead to a good governance discussion. And so I think we'll see a lot more leaning on time locks, leaning on things like vetoes, and leaning on empowering token holders to kind of reject decision making when it's going off the happy path, but when it's on the happy path, allowing service providers just to do what they do best for DAOs without needing to deal with managing voting power and calling up token holders on weekends to make sure they vote before it expires.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because Matt and Austin brought up a distant memory about the USDC DPEG, and I ran out of Netflix drama, so I was watching the ENS DAO forum. I know they were going through a tough time because they recently converted their treasury from ETH to USDC. Right. and a lot of the delegates were going crazy on there, really just like performance antics as well, and also just pushing forth their reasons for, should we convert it back? You know, what's happening? And I think it's really important because it brought up a lot of conversations about maybe an emergency track. Is that too centralized of a decision? You know, we have a governance framework with time locks and cooldowns. So all these things were tested in the span of a weekend, right? And yeah, I just thought that really proved the use case for delegates, but also for a governance framework that is forever iterating, you know, in emergency use cases like that as well. So, yeah.
I see. What about you, Bobby? Like, I think for you guys too, it was Ave's risk to was more related, but I know that there's a proposal on Uniswap to make different type of committees, and one of the team member of StableUp, which is Do, is part of the committee, right? I'm not sure if the proposal is already passed, but yeah, like how do you see this the idea of expertise-based delegation?
Yeah, so I think we've already kind of seen it. So to like give some context, there was like Optimism season 1. There was like 20 grant proposals happening like every 2 weeks, and that got very time consuming. So they knew everyone was getting burnt out, tired, they don't have the time for it. So in the next season, they implemented a grants committee, which we were part of. And we gave recommendations, but still token voters had to vote. So then in season 3, they finally formed a grants council. And instead they handled all the decisions. So like this kind of like streamlines it, it makes it a lot more efficient. So this is good for delegates, like I think in many ways. Instead of delegates having to vote on everything, which is what Gauntlet might have to do in All Armor, like have to do in Compound, where they want to focus, Gauntlet wants to focus on risk analysis. That's their bread and butter, quantitative. But they don't have time. It's not their priority to focus on other things. From the other perspective of being from Stable Lab, like we trust and we can communicate and we have a relationship. So they will message us whenever they put a proposal up, and that's really effective for us. We can understand what's happening and we have that line of communication. And I think we see this like delegated domain of governance, like expertise happen. So you mentioned Uniswap. So Do, he's over there, hello Do. He will be part of that. And that makes it a lot more easier for Uniswap. Instead of expecting the whole Uniswap DAO to hold accountability for all these new chains, these experts, these domain experts will now look after that. So I think we're slowly seeing that. We're going to see that with like the Starknet governance grants council as well, like where we trust other people. And I think like this is actually really helpful. So going back to MakerDAO as well, because like we've seen them go through these cycles. So a couple of MakerDAO delegates who wanted to purely focus on risk analysis, they had to vote on everything, and that's the only way they got paid. So if they didn't vote, they either lost, they got like, there's like a performance modifier, so they got paid less. But if they didn't vote on enough, they got paid nothing. And it doesn't really incentivize them, because you want delegates to make informed decisions. And if you're just saying you have to vote on 70% of votes, they might be voting on stuff that they don't know about, they don't care about, and that doesn't incentivize them. And that, like, it's a flawed model. So I think like this way of going to this delegated way of like trusting people is the better way. And like giving these delegates like different councils within certain things is the better way to work towards. And at least experiment with, which is what we're kind of seeing now, which is nice.
Right. It's funny, like, you know, when it comes to decentralized governance, people talk a lot about the idea of trustless. But if you really want to get like efficiency and, you know, protect DeFi protocols, like trusting people is like really important. Like you kind of have to trust somebody for specific space. And I think that was a good point. Yeah, like I wanna add another question about this new trend of delegation. Yeah, like right now there are a bunch of experimentation happening, but like, yeah, like what kind of like experimentation or ideas are you expecting to maybe happen at DAOs? Because like, you know, it's true, like having councils or, you know, somebody for specific space is nice, but at the same time, I do feel that like you rely on like those people might lose the engagement with the community. Like last year, Optimism was like, you know, so messy and there was so many proposals, but at the same time, it was interesting because like everything was happening on the forum. So I think, you know, there's a downside and, you know, upside. So yeah, like how what kind of ideas or experimentation you want to see to follow this path for any of you?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. So I think governance experimentation. So I think governance frameworks have kind of like paused and halted for a while. So recently we saw like council. So Element Finance like built like this council framework that they were using, and now they've kind of like open sourced it. And the governance frameworks that we're normally using right now are like Governor Bravo, Open Zeppelin, and a couple others. But like those teams are focusing on their own, and it's not a priority for them. So the Delve team, they rebranded, so I'm going to say Delve. They created the council framework, and they're kind of like Lego. They're like building blocks, which is kind of nice. So I think it'd be exciting to see DAOs use this form of governance, where like they can, instead of being given a framework, which is kind of like static, it's more dynamic now. So like it's nice to give these DAOs a building blocks, and they can like customize it as they want. So I think that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. Instead of stuff always being static from now on, we have more dynamic ways. And also in Aave, there was Butter, who like tried this new delegate incentive program out now. So I think we're starting to see more people focus on governance, which is really nice. And like, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I wouldn't say there's nothing specific right now, because there's a lot of things in governance that are flawed and need to be worked towards, but it's good that there are teams who are working on it. Like Stable Lab, we focus a lot on like governance facilitation and pushing professional delegates. Like we were one of the early people on that. So it's nice to see that like more people are working on this problem than anything.
I want to make it more like casual governance talk. So like, if you guys want to talk, like just chime in without like waiting for me to give you a mic. But what do you think? Go for it, Austin.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point about the having active community involvement. It is a feature, not a bug. It's almost like a way to build a better product, to get people to care and to be empowered to make decisions. And yeah, the optimism example is a really good one. They've done a great job on this. And so I think it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think for starters, you can have, so with something like a grants program, like you can have the community involvement scale as the size of the grant scales. And so you still can lean on mechanisms like voting if the grant is large enough, or if maybe there's like a quarterly retro grants funding round or something like that. But I think you can also, if you design a framework that just encourages more action and encourages more on-chain activity, I think even if that activity is, even if you aren't directly involved in the voting and approving of that activity, I think it creates more excitement around what you're doing. And so I think Nouns is a really good example of this, where what's interesting about Nouns, which does feel like the future for many DAOs, is a lot of the most important conversation happens after the proposal is made. And so they've really lowered the barrier to entry to create a proposal, because you're not having this long discourse forum. It's much more like the arena is the on-chain proposal. That's where it's social platforms is where people are talking about it, but the way people get notified and understand that there's something coming up in governance is via the on-chain proposal, and which is different than a lot of other DAOs, where it's almost like consensus has been reached, and then by the time it gets on-chain, it's everyone knows it's almost like a formality, and it's great because Nouns has normalized the idea of not every proposal is going to pass, and so I think leveraging this activity, like building into your governance framework ways for it to be easier for action to happen, for proposals to happen, for more grants to be given, for more risk parameter updates, does create community involvement in a much more kind of social way.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can look at a lot of DAOs and say like the forums are where proposals go to die. Either you don't get any communication on it, or you have a very long tail of people who at some point you don't even know if they're token holders or not in these forums. That can delay processes, turn people off from certain DAOs, and then they go elsewhere. So really figuring out like how we can have these live discussions, how we can encourage more people to put proposals up, in a way that becomes constructive. I think there is generally maybe a misconception that proposals that don't pass is a bad thing. That's a good thing. If every proposal passed, that would not be great. Like, you want to see people disagreeing. You want to see, some people call it drama, some people call it, contention, but that means people care. I like seeing that because I want to see people care. And when people get loud, and as long as it's in a respectful way, like, I want to understand their viewpoint, and I want to see like how mine differs from theirs, and like how we can come to either some kind of middle ground, or like at that point, like, governance becomes the decider. So I think it'll take some iterations to get there kind of like universally, but yeah, Nouns has done a good job of kind of leading the pack there, and hopefully people start building on top of that. We kind of see that spread out from there.
Yeah, no, I was just to add on that, because you mentioned about like proposal not passing and saying no. I think like as professional delegates, it's good that we say no sometimes. Like, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but like when we were delegates in optimism, more generally, but when we were delegates in optimism, and we used to say no to grant proposals, we would get so many Discord messages saying, how can we convince you? How can we do this? And like, it's not personal, but sometimes it was very rare for people to say no to grant proposals. Like, it was good when you got a no. Like, not every proposal should pass, and they can't pass. Like, otherwise it's just a formality and it's a waste of time. So like, saying no is good because it creates better standards for, let's say, a grant proposal, or just creates better standards in general, or like the proposal is just not suited to pass. And like, I think sometimes saying no in the right case is very good, because we don't want proposals for the sake of passing either. And it's good to say no, especially with like the Arbitrum with the 1.05, like, people wanted to, like, it didn't seem like at the start that a lot of people were going to go against it, but after a few people started commenting on it, there was a lot more like consensus around it that people were going to say no against this proposal. So yeah, saying no is good.
Let's just hit quorum. That's what we just need to hit quorum. Voter apathy or lack of participation is what is going to continue to hurt governance. Whether the decision's yes or no, like, let people be heard, and like, let's actually hit quorum. It's nothing worse just seeing a bunch of proposals not do that.
Yeah, like, I think I do remember, like, one time when I was having Bobby, you told me that, like, one of the criteria to see the quality of professional delegates is, like, just looking at, like, how many no votes they've done in the past. Like, it's so hard. Like, if you vote for no, like, other people might gonna do the same to you. Like, it's really kind of hard sometimes. So yeah, I think it's a good point. And also, like, Nouns too, like, it's actually kind of crazy that you can make impact to, like, multi-billion-dollar protocol by just submitting a proposal. Like, I think that's the most exciting part of governance. So, like, yeah, making more visible and also actionable to make proposal is, I think it's a good idea. But at the same time, I do know that on a forum, there are fucking so many airdrop proposals, like, hey, like, we have to do airdrop again and again. Like, so I think it's, yeah, it's always a balancing thing, but yeah, I think that's a good point. Okay, and now I really wanted to make this session as, like, kind of like exciting niche governance talk. So maybe it might be a bad idea, but, like, do you have any hot take in governance? Like, like, I don't know, like, I'm just experimenting, but like, it might be hard, but like, do you have any hot take in governance, like, that you can share in this public space? Bobby, you feel like you want to say something?
I probably do, but I don't know if I should say it. Also, I need to think about it, so yeah. Put me on the spot, so give me a minute, maybe.
Sure. Okay, then, like, if you guys come up with a good one, just let me know. Okay, next topic is, yeah, like, about DAO governance. Like, we started seeing so many experiments as we talk, like, and about, like, in general, like, do you have, like, anything that you're expecting to happen in DAO space or, like, governance space? Like, maybe we talk a lot about delegation, but maybe it could be, like, outside of delegation, like, maybe tooling, or it could be, like, governance facilitation work. Llama is doing an amazing job. Like, I saw your proposal, I think, like, the report of 6-month report, like, you guys made a proposal and executed, like, more than 21 or something in the past 6 months. I think, like, that's one good example of governance facilitation, right? But, like, it could be anything, but, like, do you have, like, anything that, like, to expect to happen in this year? We can expect, like, future, like, probably this year.
Yeah, I think I want to see governance frameworks mold around the communities a lot more. I feel like they should be models of the culture that each DAO possesses. So if you know you're going into a Vita DAO discourse forum, you know it's a bunch of longevity nerds and some academics that actually know what's going on. But you know, I think there's no one size fits all in governance. I don't think that's how it works. And just to see more culture, I think, in governance, something that I'm looking forward to. And also with that, I think there's always this line that governance leads like us thread, where it's, where does it get too bureaucratic, or where does it become, I'm trying to optimize human coordination? So I think seeing how people thread that line will be really interesting, and it's one of the main strengths that we have in Web3. You know, utilizing smart contracts to automate governance and hopefully decentralize our roles away at some point. So I'm really excited to see how DAOs in different areas progress towards that.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk more about, you know, what we're launching soon. Yeah, I think this idea of granular permissions is a deep one, and it's two concepts. One, granular creation permissions, where you can be really specific around, you know, our risk service providers for, you know, the next 6 months can update these risk parameters within these ranges, doing this, and then also that's just about, you know, kind of proposing the potential action, and then how does that go from, you know, creation to execution? Also having custom strategies for how that happens too, and so experimenting around optimistic voting and you know, dynamic quorums and all that sort of thing. I think for these protocols to really scale and to become these homes for valuable contributors, and to allow more you know, individuals and companies and teams with unique expertise to contribute to them, I think that getting this part right is going to be really important, because it becomes much more around it becomes much more about, like, what do you have to offer the DAO, and your proposal is explaining that, and what you're asking for in return is the granting of these permissions. And I think it's much easier for a community to decide if the ROI is positive when it's you know, kind of framed in that discrete way. A lot of times now it's a much fuzzier proposition, and it's you know, kind of difficult to onboard a lot of contributors. You really need to do your diligence, and you need to understand exactly what they're going to do, and you need to onboard them slowly and have them start with a small scope and work their way up. And there's just some upper limit with token voting, with, you know, how many contributors you can have contributing to your protocol.
Yeah, can I just add as well, something I'm really looking forward to, just listening to Austin talk, was about private voting. So, you know, using zero knowledge proofs to push for anonymous voting. I know ClearFund's leading the way in that as well, with Macy, and yeah, because it's something that we've tried at VitaDAO to shield voting on Snapshot, and it's really interesting the metrics that, you know, more governance participation is happening. The whales are going against each other, you know. so yeah, it's really interesting how it works. But yeah.
Cool. It seems like it's ending soon, but hope you guys enjoy. And it was an honor to host this session with amazing, you know, governance nerds. Thank you so much for listening.